First of all, I really appreciate you showing up now. I understand your time is really valuable, so I'm going to do my best to honor your time. And it's our most precious commodity, and I really want to respect that and make sure you leave after 40 minutes or so with some really good value that you can apply straight away and to start to get results. So without further ado, I'll begin. I've called this How I Accidentally Healed My Eczema, and my name is Neil Cannon. I'm an author. I'm the best-selling author of The Vitality Secret, health coach, speaker, and certified fitness nutrition specialist. And I'm going to really kind of sway this towards how to manage eczema without drugs, steroid creams, because really, eczema, you can never really say cure. Cure would be like it never, ever come back. And that would be irresponsible for me to say, because it can actually come back at any time. We just need to manage these things. And I've managed to do so for many years now. And I'm going to share with you some secrets that I accidentally stumbled upon. So my goal in the next kind of 40 minutes is to make you realize that you do not have to live with your eczema. And I did for 35 years. If you stay until the end, I'll send you a copy of my book for free, an e-copy of my book for free. And what makes this webinar different to what you may have already learned? Well, there's my book, the best-selling book, The Vitality Secret. That's not really what makes it different. Okay, it's a bestseller on Amazon. It reveals the root cause of just about everything. It's not just eczema. This is almost every health condition that you can think of, every common illness, every chronic disease, and even accelerated aging. It accelerates the biological aging process. So I'm about to tell you some cool stuff. I've got an award-winning digital program, and I'm a health coach, podcast host. In my podcast, I interview people who have healed their bodies of quote-unquote incurable conditions. I say quote unquote because this is according to Western medicine, which is quite limited thinking. So I'm kind of going out there and interviewing all these people who have reversed all kinds of conditions, like various forms of cancers and multiple sclerosis, chronic pain, fibromyalgia. So lots of these things that people struggle with normally. Most importantly, I get results for the people that I work with, my customers and clients. And even more importantly, something that I really kind of pride myself on is that I empower people to heal their own bodies. This isn't about kind of enrolling you into a program where I say, do this, don't do that. It's really to kind of give you the power to understand how much power you have to heal your own body. And this is really what healing skin is all about, as you're about to find out. So I've done a lot of things right, and rather should spend longer on this slide, done a lot of things wrong as well. So after doing this for 30 odd years, just kind of scratching and thinking I was eating a healthy diet, I was going from cream to cream, steroid to steroid, shower cream to bath ointment, white gloves, etc. You can probably relate to this. When I was a kid, I used to wear these white gloves going to bed, and I would often scratch holes in them. I'd make myself bleed, and I'd go through a pair of gloves every couple of weeks. Although I wouldn't wear the same pair for 2 weeks. That'd be quite revolting. But yes, I went through a lot of gloves by scratching holes in them, and it really wasn't pleasant. And this is throughout my whole childhood, school, primary school, secondary school. If you're in the UK, that probably means something to you. And then even going into uni, although I wouldn't wear white gloves going to university. So yes, I had it for the most part of my life. Again, I can't say it's completely and utterly gone, because very occasionally it will if I don't kind of pay attention. So I was always convinced it was just my thing. You know, we often think, oh, it's hereditary. It's this thing I've just got to live with. And it's quite sad, because most people will just live with it for the whole of their lives and just kind of suffer. And it need not be the case. So this is going to be worth your while seeing this. So I discovered this the hard way, and you're about to get a cheat and get it the easy way. So here's the hard way: using steroid creams and poor quality moisturizers that do more harm than good. Focus entirely on the outside and not wonder what triggers irritation and itching. Ignore diet, exercise, and most importantly, psychology. That last bit is a huge thing. It's huge. It's absolutely massive. The diet is actually relatively easy to get right once you understand what triggers it on the inside. The psychology is the most fascinating part about eczema. So would you like to go the easy way that cuts through years of pain, embarrassment, and frustration? I'm guessing you would, and I'm not going to pause and ask you to all show your hands here. I'm just going to assume that that is something you'd like. So in the past 4 years, I've been free of eczema, mostly. And I didn't go on holiday for 4 years. You're probably familiar with this. You go on holiday and you find that if you're on the sea and you're on the beach for a few weeks, it tends to clear up. And that's down to the seawater, which is amazingly healing for you, and the sun. You've got these two combinations, and also you're not doing your day-to-day work, and stress won't be a part of it. So what I will say at this point, just quickly, is results are not typical for this, and I do have to have a disclaimer. So depending on the severity of your eczema and your application of the material you find out in this webinar, results will vary. So I cannot guarantee that you will have exactly the same results. I've got to say that. I should also say that I'm not a qualified medical doctor. I am a health coach and a certified fitness nutrition specialist, and I help people get results. So 3 secrets. Secret number 1, as you saw on the page that you signed up with, eczema has a root cause, and genetics do not have to play a part. Secret 2, your skin is the largest organ on the body and the first indication of imbalance. Secret number 3 is there are 2 dietary methods to get noticeable results in days. So let's start with number 1. Why wouldn't I? Revealing the underlying health condition. Quick backstory. This book, I was inspired to write this book because of my father. And he's still around, but a few years ago, he suffered a stroke. And I realized that he suffered it unnecessarily. And the reason I say that is because a few years prior to having his stroke, he was diagnosed with this health condition, which later worsened, and it led to his stroke. In fact, he had the chronic inflammation, which led to high blood pressure, which led to a stroke. So that's the best image I could find for a stroke. And I decided to reverse engineer his challenge. And it was pretty amazing what I found out, because I realized that the underlying health condition that he had been diagnosed with, which was chronic inflammation, was actually the same thing that was the underlying root cause of his asthma. So asthma is chronic inflammation of the bronchial tubes. A lot of people have this for their whole lives, not really wondering, not really thinking about it, just thinking it's hereditary, but it actually has an underlying root cause. It's inflammation of the bronchial tubes, but why do the bronchial tubes become inflamed? Well, exactly the same thing is why eczema becomes inflamed. And interestingly, the skin, if there's anything wrong with the skin, whether it's eczema or psoriasis or acne or dermatitis, it's all the same stuff. It's actually showing you that you have inflammation going on in your body. So you might be wondering, what is inflammation? That would be a very good question to ask at this stage. So inflammation, in a nutshell, it's your immune system under attack. It's actually an immune system response to what your body perceives as an attack on it. If you think about it, when you injure, say, an ankle, and it swells up, you get a cut in it, or maybe you don't, but you injure it, and say you knock it, so it swells up, it becomes really painful. Your body sends all these funky fluids to it, it warms it up, the temperature goes up, and it becomes painful. And it becomes painful so you don't hit it again and cause further harm. It's a very amazing response. So that's an immune system reaction protecting your ankle. Chronic inflammation is kind of similar in that it's your immune system trying to protect you from things that enter your body that your body doesn't recognize. So really, it's like it's under a state of attack. It goes into defense mode. It's constantly trying to protect your body from things that your immune system does not recognize. It's a big thing. And this is something that affects so many people these days. And most people just accept that their condition, whether it's a digestive problem or skin problem or breathing problem or even migraines or depression, they think it's all just hereditary, when it all actually comes down to this underlying root cause. So your skin is actually a result of this it's just a symptom of it. It's a symptom of inflammation. And this, I've kept this ever since my friend sent it to me. It says, if you don't recognize an ingredient, your body won't either. We have a pretty horrific food supply these days. It's been really messed with. There's so much fake food. There's all these added chemicals and preservatives. And then you've got the likes of all the pesticides and herbicides and fungicides, insecticides sprayed on plants. But, you know, all these packaged goods, they come with really nasty stuff in them. And I'm not going to try and even attempt to read some of those things, but you know, what's see, I can't pronounce it. So your body's not going to recognize that. And there's things in there, and there's a clue across the top. You know, most vegetable oils are not healthy oils. So a lot of them are hydrogenated and they're man-made fats, which your body does not recognize. They can be tasty, but your body will not recognize them, and they'll go into a state of defense. So I like to think of foods that trigger inflammation as alien foods. Your body does not recognize them and reacts as if they're foreign or alien invaders, like that weird-looking chappie in the background. Now, there are a few other things that trigger inflammation, and one is stress. I mentioned it earlier. Another thing is just environmental toxins and food, being in the quotation marks, because a lot of what we're putting in our mouths these days should not be called food. It's just stuff that goes into our stomach, and then it becomes part of our body eventually. It's quite scary what we're putting into our mouths sometimes. Insulin resistance, I won't go into that too much in this particular presentation. Ultimately, this is when your cells become resistant to the hormone insulin, which is the hormone that your pancreas secretes to balance blood sugars. And typically with our Western diet, which is very carbohydrate loaded and also high in sugar, a lot of people are becoming resistant to the hormone insulin, which is actually the precursor to type 2 diabetes. And insulin resistance causes inflammation, and inflammation causes insulin resistance. So it's a kind of a two-way thing. Lack of physical activity, big thing there, sedentary lives, and insufficient micronutrients. This is vitamins and minerals predominantly from plant-based foods. So a typical day in the life of me, Neil, would start with breakfast cereal. This is how I lived until my, I'd say, 30s, pretty much. It's such an easy way to start the day. No one wants to spend time preparing food, do they? And really, we've just got, this is habitual, really. We want to get everything done very fast. And it's a conditioning, it's a societal thing, it's a social thing. We just want breakfast to be fast. So we just grab this fast breakfast cereal and we throw milk on it, and it's wheat and cow's milk. So, which is apparently great for your bones if you listen to Western advice. Sandwich with healthy whole grain. There it is again. Brown bread with tuna, mayo, and lettuce and cucumber. Then dinner might be pasta with rice and potatoes with meat or fish and one token cooked vegetable. So basically, there's a lot of stuff I'm consuming all day long. And what does this all mean? Well, it's a breeding ground for insulin spikes, immune suppression, and inflammation. Let's go back on that again. It's just a lot of stuff. Wheat and milk, wheat and a few token vegetables, mostly kind of meat and wheat, and like a bit of lettuce. This is obviously not my exact meal, but the point is this can easily be misunderstood for a healthy snack, a sandwich. And then for dinner, again, there's no vegetables there. So again, breeding ground for inflammation. So, and an unhappy gut. And this is one of the major things to think about with clearing your skin, because ultimately it all goes back to the condition of your gut. So the secret number 2 is, I mentioned it earlier, but your skin is the largest organ on the body, and it's also the first indication of imbalance. So again, when your gut is out of balance, as it can be because of what we're eating and what we're exposed to, and even stress can cause your gut to go out of balance. But if there's anything wrong with your skin, it means your gut is out of balance. And we have this microbiome, which is your gut bacteria. And when they get affected by just foreign matter constantly entering the gut, or even if you're just having one thing all the time, we need to have a balanced gut to have good skin. So this is slightly off topic, but I wanted to bring this in here anyway. And I like to think of eczema as your gift. And the reason I say this is because I mentioned that it's the largest organ on the body and the first indication that it's out of balance. The reason why I think of it as a gift is because we now know that chronic inflammation is the root cause of just about every chronic disease that exists, every common illness, and again, faster aging. So you have cardiovascular diseases there, so heart attacks and strokes, bone, muscular and skeletal diseases, chronic inflammatory diseases, so typically kind of, well, anything really, but anything related to the gut, so Crohn's disease, what else in the gut, IBS, inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, they're kind of common inflammatory diseases. I mean, all of this stuff is inflammatory diseases, really, even neurodegenerative diseases. So Alzheimer's and Parkinson's they have to have chronic inflammation for them to develop in the body. That's a huge thing. Depression, chronic inflammation. It's been linked with depression of the brain. Chronic inflammation of the brain. And then there's diabetic complications. To develop type 2 diabetes, you have to have chronic inflammation and you have to have insulin resistance. To develop type 1 diabetes in life, you have to have chronic inflammation. Sometimes you're born with it, but when it develops in life, it's an autoimmune disease. And then we have metabolic disorder complications and then cancer, and it's all chronic inflammation. So metabolic disorder could often be associated with obesity. A lot of the clients that I work with, I help them reverse inflammation, and a side effect of that is that all their fat drops off because they were focusing on losing weight before, which is just a backward way of doing it. That's just a social, societal way of doing it. When you focus on balancing the body and getting rid of inflammation, the weight just falls off, which is huge. So again, I like to think of it as a gift because it's your first indication that you're out of balance. So you've heard it, I've heard it, we've all heard it. You are what you eat. When diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. When diet is correct, medicine is of no need. That's an ancient Ayurvedic proverb. I love this. I think it's so powerful. Really is. The food, whatever we eat, is either going to make us or break us, ultimately. In fact, did you know that whatever you put in your body eventually becomes a part of you? With every bite you take, you are either feeding disease or you are fighting it. You are making yourself stronger or weaker with every single bite. So it's worth thinking about what we eat with every mouthful. Obviously, you don't want to become a food Nazi and just eat nothing, treats. Have treats. It's what we do consistently that is going to make us or break us over time. So I like to use the kind of 80-90% rule and just, treat myself on the weekend, but I won't have a dessert with every lunch or with every meal that some people do. And it's quite a social and societal thing to do. So secret number 3, 2 dietary methods to experience results within days. So you remember me talking about my typical day in the life of me. Inflammatory culprit number 1 is cow's milk. Now the clue, without going into all the studies about this, which I don't really have time to do now, there's actually a reason why cow's milk is inflammatory. And I'd like to just take a kind of a bird's eye look at this for a second to really kind of get you thinking about this. Because I actually saw this interview quite recently, well, a couple of years ago, with a leading, I call them pioneers in human health that are really kind of movers and shakers. And he was interviewed by the diet doctor. And the diet doctor said, "Hey, what's your view on cow's milk?" And he said, "How long do you have?" And the point was, he then went into it and he said, think of it this way. Human breast milk is specifically designed for baby human beings, these tiny little babies, to grow fast, to give them this massive boost in life, to give them the right nutrients, the right micronutrients, macronutrients, amino acids, proteins, and hormones for these tiny little baby humans to grow fast. Similarly, he said, cow's milk is specifically designed for baby cows to grow fast. Baby cows, which are like, they look nothing like humans. In fact, if you've forgotten what a cow looks like, I've got one there for you, but there's a human baby, and there's cow's udders on the left, and then there's human breast on the right. So they look very, very dissimilar to humans. And we have been masterfully conditioned, really clever, to think that milk is actually good for your bones, when in fact the opposite occurs. I'm not going to go into this now, but milk does not make your bones stronger. Yes, it does have calcium, but the acidic effect that happens when we consume cow's milk actually negates the effect of the calcium. And in fact, our bones can actually become weaker by drinking milk because it causes acid in the body, and the calcium in the bones neutralizes the effect of the acid in the body, and you end up getting brittle bones, hip fractures, etc. In fact, the study is showing that I don't have them right here, but where across the world where the most milk is consumed, there are more bone fractures and osteoporosis and bone problems. So it's a myth. So take a step back. We are not baby cows, and we're baby humans. Not even that, are we? We're fully grown adults. So when the other interesting thing is that when a baby human stops feeding off his mother's breast, remember to get the right mammal, they lose the enzyme called lactase, which breaks down the sugar called lactose in cow's milk. It's a natural thing. It's a very natural thing because we don't need it. We're not going to be feeding from our mother's breast all of our lives, unless you're one of these strange people that does. Let's not get into that. But the point is, maybe we shouldn't have said that. So the point is that it's actually a natural thing to not have the enzyme, which is why about 75% of the population doesn't actually tolerate cow's milk very well. They're lactose intolerant. Some people are acutely intolerant, and some people they can kind of tolerate it for a few days and don't really notice it. So I really advise not to drink cow's milk. So this is going to sound a little bit paradoxical here, because interestingly, some people can tolerate cheese and some people can tolerate butter. In fact, I do have butter. It's gone through the process where most of the casein has gone, which is the protein found in cow's milk, and also the lactose has gone as well. So it's basically just pure fat. So, and fat is your friend, unless you're in the 1980s when they said that it's not. So that's a good thing. But I recommend not drinking cow's milk, unless, of course, you're a baby cow. And if you're watching this, you're probably not. So a few little reminders. There's lactose. That's the sugar in cow's milk that most of us can't tolerate. It's acidic. It causes acid in the body. Way more protein. Remember, these baby cows are way bigger than a human being when they're born. And again, they look nothing like humans. So not the best thing to drink if you want to have a healthy gut. 2, modern hybridized wheat grain. So 10,000 years ago, started the agricultural industry. It might not have been this offensive, but these days, the hybridized wheat grain, the wheat grain has been hybridized. And in America, it's a pretty bad case because it's gone through this process called mutagenesis. And what that means is the protein has been altered by man, so the farmers can yield more in less time. And this is amazing for the agricultural industry, not so good for your health. Because what it does is where the crops used to be about a metre and a half tall, they're now about a foot tall. And they're called dwarf crops, again, to yield more, less time. Amazing for the industry, not good for our health. It's been completely messed with by man. They get about 14 different proteins. The gut does not recognize it. If you think you're okay with gluten, I recommend taking it out for 7 days and just see what happens. Just feel your body. Think about, just be present with how your brain is functioning. Be present with your energy. Look, if you're prone to storing body fat, see how fast you drop it. And then, of course, see what happens with your skin. Amazing things happen when you just take out the gluten. You might want to, there are things that you can replace it with, of course, like gluten-free alternatives. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but for now, you could try with a gluten-free alternative bread, but just be very careful with what gluten-free alternative you have, because some of them, certainly if you're in America, are of pretty poor quality. And by the way, if we're in Europe, yes, it is a better grain, but it's still causing a lot of problems. So just be very mindful of this one. So this is a brilliant tip. Avoid the cereal aisle. It's a really offensive aisle. And it's, again, I used to love this aisle. Lovely food, lots of sugar, it's just very easy, delicious meal. Sadly, it's just loaded with, firstly, the hybridized wheat grain. And it's got sugar in, preservatives, artificial flavorings, preservatives, chemicals. And then you've got the milk. They spike your blood sugars like you wouldn't believe when in the morning, and we're still giving this stuff to kids, wondering why they can't concentrate in school. It's because their blood sugars spike like crazy, and then they crash about half an hour to an hour later when your insulin takes out all the excess blood sugar to prevent your blood from becoming toxic, and then you have this sudden low. So it's a really crazy way to start the day, and I stopped doing this several years ago because I realized what I was doing to my body. So I'd say avoid that aisle, unless you find some really brilliant grain-free alternatives, certainly gluten-free. But there are lots of kind of paleo examples coming out now, which might not be too bad. And you might want to have almond milk or hemp or coconut. And there's a number of alternatives. Don't have soy. It's estrogenic, meaning it increases your estrogen levels. So more toxins include pesticides and herbicides, insecticides, anything that ends in "-ides" is not going to be good in your body. And there's a lot of vegetables that we're eating these days which are just laced in these things, and they're classified as neurotoxins, excitotoxins. They're not excitotoxins, by the way. I mean, they excite brain cells to death. Yeah, true story. So they're not so innocent, and they're also destroying our soils, by the way. Our soils are becoming nutrient deficient because of all these chemicals that are being sprayed all over the fields. And there's some amazing documentaries on this now, showing how we can actually save our planet if we stop spraying everything with chemicals. It's not sustainable, despite all the arguments for saying it is. It's destroying the planet. So then I put that in there just to be kind of meaningful. You know, we're spraying all this stuff and then just kind of giving kids these beautiful looking fruits, not realizing that they've been grown in chemicals all of their lives. The final thing on this particular segment is epigenetics. So what this means, epigenetics really means that we have the power to control the environment in our body, which we can then turn on or off our DNA. So our genes, we might have a genetic predisposition to getting eczema or asthma or IBS or anything, cancer, type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes. And it doesn't matter at all. It really doesn't play any part, because we have the power to create the environment in our body to not allow things to actually develop. So it's all about the environment in our body, in our gut, and what we're exposed to. So we can come from a whole family of eczema sufferers, or a whole family of cancer sufferers, or diabetes. If we do what they did, then yes, our chances are pretty high of developing it as well, because it would just be following a pattern that doesn't work. But if we do the opposite and typically do something that's anti-inflammatory and have a really healthy environment in our body, there's no need at all to develop what our parents had or have. And now for something completely different, in the words of Monty Python. So an unannounced discussion is the psychology of eczema, and I don't have time to go into this in great detail, but I just wanted to touch on this because this is what I've really helped my clients with when I work with them one-on-one, particularly. And it's something to really think about because, well, let's go. First of all, it's pleasurable. When we scratch that itch, it gets really, really pleasurable. It's actually satisfying. You can relate to this. I know you can, because you're watching this. You scratch the itch, you just get into it, and it's just like you don't want to stop. So you're like, oh, this is amazing. And because of that, it can actually become habitual, because it's this pleasure that we're seeking when we scratch. And it also takes us away from whatever it is we're experiencing in that moment, some kind of negative emotion, maybe sadness, depression, anxiety, frustration, boredom. You start scratching and it's like, oh, I can take myself away from this situation for a second. And it's a weird psychology behind this, but I've learned what it's all about. And then we have it's addictive, because it's pleasurable, because it's satisfying. We almost, and it's because it's habitual. You know, I used to find myself waking up almost every morning and just start scratching for that, not even being itchy at all. And I'd start scratching just because it was habitual. And I'd scratch if I was stressed, and I would scratch if I was bored, or if I was it just became this habitual thing. And then it becomes addictive. And there's a number of reasons why it becomes addictive, because of the human needs that we have, which I won't go into in too much depth at this point, because the psychology goes a bit deep. But when we find ourselves addicted to these things which do not serve us, ultimately no one really wants eczema. They want to just be free and have clear skin, clear, sexy skin. But it can become addictive. So we need to just kind of be aware of the psychology of it. And it's also, it can be a problem that you might just love to have. And this is verging on the idea of a negative identity. And this is something that happens with a lot of people. And I might have even experienced it myself in other areas of my life, but some people can become addicted to their problems and almost start worshipping them like it's a thing that you just have to, like it's your thing. It's like, hey, I've got this eczema, leave me alone, it's my thing. And almost kind of being proud of it, something to think about, something to talk about. And it's we want to break free from that, because it doesn't serve us, it doesn't serve anyone. And it's a process to understand the psychology behind it, but it's a beautiful transformation once you understand how to get past all these things. I've been in LA for the last 4 years. I'm actually in London now, but for the last 4 years, I've invested a lot of money in psychology training, and all of this stuff came up going through these things. And I'm happy to be bringing it to you now. So my own story, I cleaned up my diet massively. I actually became more effective at my physical activity. It's a slightly weird thing to say there, but there's some things that you do physical exercise-wise that can really generate heat in the body. And when you generate heat, you can become itchy. In fact, I still experience this now. And what I've realized is the first thing, once I've stopped doing like a 40-minute run, I personally like running, not anything over that, because you raise the cortisol levels too much, and you can actually start. Yeah, I won't go into that, but I actually love running for the brain as well. It alleviates stress. So with running, I often find that I get itchy, and or rather, I'll stop running and I'll start scratching, because it's a habit. And as soon as you start scratching, you gonna just pause for a second. Damn. Have a notification. As soon as you stop scratching, as soon as you stop running, you start scratching, because it's habitual, which is really sad. And you just have to kind of catch yourself. And then managing emotions like stress. Again, this is a big thing, understanding what stress is and really kind of reframing it so we don't use the word stress anymore. There's so many things that so many different it's like an umbrella term for lots of different emotions, and ultimately it's derived from fear. And really kind of, you might have heard the acronym false evidence appearing real. We make things up in our mind. We make like an outcome up in our mind, which is in the future and made up, and that's what creates greater stress in our body. And really, stress is your internal response to external strains. So there's lots of stuff I've learned to all of this stuff, which is really cool, and I'm bringing it into my program. So the results are clear skin, and who doesn't want clear skin? Lots of energy, effortless fat burning, high drive, clear head, very low stress, motivated. So all of this has happened through the kind of transformation transformative years. I've been in LA and just before, in fact. So it's a bit of it's like a holistic approach. It can't just be one thing. So it's everything. So your results are 80% dependent on one thing, your psychology. Having said it's not just one thing. 80% down to psychology and about 20% mechanics. The psychology of adopting new dietary and lifestyle habits, and there's the actual psychology of eczema itself, but it's shifting habits, creating new associations with food. That's the hardest part, but the actual mechanics of doing it aren't the hard thing. So I just want to raise that point, because it's actually the greatest challenge is actually just understanding that there are certain things that we have been eating all of our lives that we might be best to avoid to clean up our gut and clear up our skin. So do you know what our greatest addictions are? Again, this is going back to the psychology of eczema, and it's our problems because they actually satisfy a number of our basic human needs. If you're looking about Tony Robbins talks about 6 human needs that we have, being certainty, uncertainty or variety, significance, love and connection, and growth and contribution. So growth and contribution are like the 2 high level ones, and then there's the 4 that come beforehand, which are kind of lower level ones. And if you satisfy a number of these, at least 3, they become an addiction, and that's how your problems become an addiction. It's quite crazy. So they can become an identity. I touched on it earlier, and it's known as a negative identity. Well, something we don't really want, but we end up making something our identity for a number of different reasons. So in the past hour, would you say that's been time well spent? I hope so. I feel it has been. I can't cover everything you need in an hour because it's years of my work. I've just given you some of the best parts, or some snippets rather, of what I've done, and I want to give you some action things that you can actually get results with right away. And now I'd like to make you a no-brainer offer so you can get everything that you need to know. Everything. And if you act fast, I'm going to do a very special deal. Of course, I'm going to say that. So, old habits die hard. Be excited. Introducing the inflammation solution. This is what I got the award for in California. I received the Southern California Sustainable Business Award for it in April last year. And that's me and Moby receiving the award for it. I've helped people reverse a number of different conditions, and it's been pretty successful. Not just skin, but pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, gout, Parkinson's. Yeah, Parkinson's, that was a complete fluke, helping someone reverse type 2 diabetes. So this stuff works. And this is the format. It's 12 pillars of no inflammation. And it goes from neuro skills and psychology to oxygen, fluids, lymphatic immune support, activity, macronutrients, micronutrients, sleep, toxin and poison elimination, insulin sensitivity, orthopedics, and nature's pharmacy. It's quite a condensed program, or comprehensive program rather. So I'd like to invite you to join, because you will get results. So as my health coach, Neil helped me reverse pre-diabetes, reduce inflammation and high blood pressure, normalize unhealthy cholesterol levels, and lose 40 pounds of fat. I have more energy, and my mood fluctuations have eased a lot. Thank you, Neil. That's the name of Vishali in Los Angeles. This guy is awesome, Mark. He went hell for leather, and he said, my mindset is different, the way I look at food is different, the quality of my life with my children has greatly improved. For me, it was life-changing and the best thing I've ever done. I burned 42 pounds of fat in just over 6 weeks. My arthritis is totally gone. And one final twist is the plaque on my teeth literally falling off. I highly recommend his program, Mark Rayworth. This is someone on YouTube, actually. She said, it's been 7 days without dairy and wheat, and I'm in shock. I'm loving it. I'm looking forward to seeing myself wearing shorts for the summer. I haven't used any ointments. My diet has made my skin look better. I'm so happy. Thank you for your great advice. This is a slightly longer one, but this is Daniel. He said, I recently commented on one of your other videos. Thought I might share my story. I was recently getting really bad flare-ups. I've always had very, very mild eczema, and it only came in small patches. However, this time it went all over my body, and I was convinced there might be something wrong with me, something serious. I got really severe. It got really severe and ended up with infections and intense itching all over. I had to moisturize my whole body twice daily to make sure I didn't get any eczema, something I've never had to do. And it just seemed to come out of nowhere. I couldn't wear the clothes I used to wear, jeans, certain fabrics, and I had to use strong steroid creams to manage the eczema I did get. After watching this video, a similar one to what we're watching now, I decided to give up dairy. I only ever had a small amount anywhere in my coffee, as well as occasionally having cheese. Literally 5 days after doing this, my skin changed. It got smooth. It got its feeling back after a couple of days. My eczema literally has disappeared. I can't believe it. Thanks for the video. I might have never tried it if I didn't watch it. How cool is that? So I'd like to make you the offer I'm talking about, a no-brainer offer to heal your skin from within. So we know now it's all about healing from the inside out, and then you can get amazing results. So if all this did was make you less itchy, would it be worth it? If it were to just alleviate some embarrassment, would it be worth it? What about if it were to improve your self-confidence just a weeny bit? Would it be worth it? I think so. What's clear skin worth to you? How much would you invest in your health to get clear skin forever and skyrocketed confidence? How much would your life change? Remember, when inflammation becomes chronic, it leads to just about every chronic disease that there is. And there's that picture again. Cardiovascular diseases, bone, muscular, skeletal diseases, neurological disorders, diabetic complications. It's everything, cancer. So it is really a good thing to clear up your gut, clean your gut out, so your skin clears up, and then your body is telling you that you're clean again. Clean on the inside. So, and oh yeah, and it also accelerates the biological aging process. It makes you age faster, and who wants that? So book yourself a place on my course. It's I didn't even talk about the price right here. It's I'm offering the inflammation solution and clear skin in 7 for $97. It's a one-off payment of $97. It's an absolute no-brainer. I want this in as many hands as possible. I'm not making any actually, it is a slight reduction. I've combined the two programs, but yeah, you get clear skin in 7, which is a 7-day program, and then you have the full 6-week inflammation solution, so you can really clear out your whole body from the inside out with all the different modalities we talked about. So it's nutrition, lifestyle, and psychology. So yeah, I hope you found that really useful, and get yourself a place on this course. Again, the website URL is it's actually https://clearskinin7 with a number 7.com/order.